Buenos dias! Hi everybody, how's it going? What up? Happy Cinco de Mayo, etc. I was just trying to get Toaster in here to hang out with us, but he was more interested in his little chew toy and laying down. So, I don't know, maybe he'll come in a minute. How are you guys? Let's chat. Anything fun going on? Oh, somebody has a question. So, we'll just go ahead and get started. We'll talk a little bit as we go. I'm just hanging out today. I'm just here to answer questions. This is my office hours, which I just schedule these randomly every week or two, just, to be available to you guys to answer questions. And so this is different from my, more formal show, Summer Tomato Live, which is very, topic specific. But it's fun. You guys are welcome to hang out in the chat. Oh, it's your study break. Awesome. So that Kat says she's studying for finals. I guess it's finals for a lot of people, which is painful. I've taken many, many finals. Many finals. So I can sympathize. So she actually had a question that next week is finals, and she's wondering if I have any quick lunch dinner ideas for this student. So when I'm in a hurry, so when I was, last time I did this, basically when I was preparing for a thesis committee meeting or, trying to do, get my thesis written and do my defense, I was basically eating kale and beans for every meal. So, because kale cooks in 2 minutes or 3 minutes or something, it cooks really fast. Just rinse it off, throw a little olive, chop it up really easy. I cut all the leaves at once, just boom, 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 boom. Smash some garlic, cut that up real fast, and just take a hot pan, throw some olive oil in there, throw your kale leaves in there, and just sort of use some tongs and stir it up. And right when it's almost done, I just clear a little spot in the bottom of the pan and put some garlic, and actually usually add a little bit more olive oil and some salt, and just stir it around. And then I always have a big batch of beans in the fridge because I make them every weekend, a really big batch in my pressure cooker. But even if canned beans are good, I also have, if you go to Summer Tomato and search rice for dummies, I have a technique that I freeze. I make a big batch of brown rice, and then I freeze individual servings and stick them in the freezer, and those defrost in a minute and a half or 2 minutes in the microwave. You just I use some water and run them under the sink a little bit so I can take the plastic off, because you don't want to obviously microwave plastic. And then I just take the little frozen rice ball and throw it in a bowl and microwave that. It's so fast, super easy, it's super tasty. Can't go wrong. What else is good? I mean, and with when I say you can do that with kale, you can also do it with chard. I also do it with those little baby broccoli. Yeah. Eggs. I scramble up eggs in 2 seconds too if I'm in a hurry. That's a good one. I eat eggs. I tend to eat it with kimchi or some veggies, a little chard on the side is good, or salad or something. So, hope that helps. Sorry for my voice. It's a little scratchy because I've been coughing a lot, because apparently I have allergies, which I've never had in my life. But everybody in San Francisco is experiencing this right now. They're sick for 2 weeks, and they go to the doctor, and they're like, "You're not sick, you have allergies." And we're all like, "But why are we coughing up phlegm?" And and they're like, "No, just take this nasal spray." So I'm hoping that all this will clear up soon. Oh, you have a surplus of kale. Rad. I wish I had a surplus of kale. Hi, Lisa. Thanks for coming in. Glad you like my tweets. Teaching with soul. That's cool. So Japan radiation you want to know about. In food? So the half-life of I believe it was radioactive iodine, is really short. So it's only 8 days. So what that means is there shouldn't be that much radiation after a month. It should be almost gone. So I don't think it's a huge big deal. If you're concerned about it, avoid the milk, avoid the fish for a little while. Or take iodine salt. which will protect your thyroid. Oh, here's a good question. Excuse me. Do I have a favorite recipe for steel-cut oats? So steel-cut oats are awesome. I'll say that. They're a pain to cook, so usually it takes some foresight, because if you just cook them straight, it takes like 45 minutes to an hour. So generally, it's advisable to soak them in like warm water overnight first, and then they cook up pretty fast. Otherwise, you can cook them in a pressure cooker. And you can also store them in the freezer and then like thaw them out when you're ready to eat them. So those are a couple ways to do it. My personal favorite with like all oatmeal. So I like to cook it with raisins in it, and the raisins, I don't know where you live, but Trader Joe's has these big, fat, like juicy raisin medleys, and they're really tasty. And so if you have some good fresh, or farmers markets also tends to have like really good fresh raisins, you throw them and you cook them in there with the water so they plump up, so they're these like juicy little morsels of sugar, but not like fake sugar, like pretty natural sugar. And maybe at the end crumble in some walnuts, and I like a lot of cinnamon in mine, but that's not for everybody. And then I usually pour on a little bit of unsweetened coconut milk, or almond milk is awesome. I recently discovered how tasty that is. And to me, that's like, it doesn't require any sugar. I don't use any brown sugar. I don't use any honey. That to me is like as sweet as I ever need to be. Just with those raisins and a little bit of cinnamon, I think it's awesome. So that's my favorite recipe for oats. Thank you. Good question. So, the Japan radiation caused my allergies. Nice. It probably did not. I wish I was in Japan. That'd be awesome. I mean, minus disasters, but I'm still yet to go there, and it's one of my favorite cultures. So, hope to make it there soon. What else is going on up in here? So someone is asking if cooking meat in the slow cooker is bad from any perspective. Does it lose any nutritional content? How about vegetables? So this is a really good question. So what you can do when you think about like whether or not heating something up does damage to it. So almost exclusively the nutrients that are damaged when there is heat are very sort of long chain antioxidants. So we're talking about vitamin C and other vitamins like this, and the things that turn fruits and vegetables bright colors. Those things tend to degrade in heat. So, and this is one of the arguments that like raw foodists make. They're like, oh, we don't want to degrade any of the nutrients. But the reality is like you can still eat those nutrients from raw food, and the ones that you're going to get in meat, for example, is very, very minimal. So, no, I wouldn't worry about that, because the other nutrients in meat, like protein and minerals, there's a lot of minerals in meat, like iron and calcium. And then there's B vitamins that are, all these are fairly stable when heated. So if anything, meat becomes a little bit more dangerous when it's heated at high temperatures, because the high temperatures create a little bit of like carcinogens. But if anything, the slow cooker is probably safer, because you have a lower temperature for a longer period of time. And it's going to make the meat really soft and good without making that high heat that could be dangerous. So that's good. Regarding vegetables, like I said, they will lose a little bit of nutritional value, but as long as you're eating other vegetables throughout the day, or fruits. I mean, most of us, if we eat any raw vegetables at all, or fruits at all, are getting plenty of vitamin C. So I don't think you have to worry too much about cooking food. And in fact, some vegetables and nutrients become a lot more bioavailable, and that means your body can absorb them a lot better if they're cooked a little bit, because they'll be trapped up in the cell walls of the plant, and sometimes having a little fat in there, either from the meat or from some olive oil or something like that, will help the fat-soluble vitamins actually get into your tissues. So I recommend eating both raw and cooked foods, and just a wide variety of different ones to make sure that you're getting everything you need in reasonable quantities. Great question. Sorry for my cough again. For those of you who are just tuning in, happy Cinco de Mayo. It's my favorite holiday of the year. My family is half Mexican, and I love tacos. So later, I'm going to be going out and having some tacos, having some beers, and it'll be great. So I'm just here to answer any questions you have, shoot the shit about whatever. I know a lot about food. I know a lot about nutrition and health, and I like NBA basketball. I love to talk about that. So anything you have. And yeah, I do prefer, I kind of try to monitor the chat room. So feel free to use it, talk to amongst yourself. I might catch your question there, but you're much more likely for me to catch it if you use the little red ask a question button, and then I can put it up on the screen for everyone to see. And I'm actually recording this, so it's better for posterity, if you will, if you go ahead and use the official question button so that I can put it up for everyone to see. So let's see. I'm going to ask this question that's been here for a while. Would I consider the sous vide worth it? So for those of you who don't know, the sous vide is a very expensive piece of cooking equipment that was recently introduced into my family. And basically what it does is it's a very precise water bath, and you vacuum pack foods and you cook them in there for like days and days, and it makes them super succulent and super soft. Like it'll be the most tender steak or chicken or whatever you've ever had. But it's very expensive. Personally, we haven't nailed anything with it yet. And I think part of the reason is because after you take it out of the sous vide, you usually need to grill it. Actually, I take that back. We nailed a game hen the other day. We did a sous vide for, I think it was 6 hours, and then we stuck it under the broiler for a couple minutes, and it crisped up the skin, and it was awesome. It was like basically sort of the best like chicken I've ever had in my life, or up there with some of it. But the meat, like especially the beef, and I don't think we've tried pork yet, but they have, I don't know. It's worth it if you have the money to play around with it. If that's a big investment for you, you can definitely live without it. So that's my advice right there. I'm going to go check the chat room. Lakers not so good right now. Yes, true. My thoughts on Splenda. I hope you asked that in the other room. I can get to it later. Happy to answer questions. You can solder some hardware and convert a slow cooker to a sous vide. There you go. I eat a lot of dried fruits. Ask that in the regular questions. Okay, so someone else asked about the sous vide experiment. How closely should you watch it to avoid botulism? Kat, can you explain to me why we would be worried about botulism with the sous vide? As far as I've been told, you cook it for so long and at a high enough temperature that it should kill absolutely everything. So I haven't heard anything about being worried about botulism. But please enlighten me, because I would like to know about that. But no, I think it's been good. Okay, this is a good question. So you need to lose 10 pounds. And you get frustrated with calorie counting. Suggestions for kickstarting this. Yeah, so my first recommendation to anyone trying to lose weight is how much sugar do you eat, and the faster you can get that to 0, the faster you'll lose weight. And I also recommend cutting out the artificial sweeteners, because what you want to do is those maintain your like taste for sugar, and that's not good. You want to like get rid of your taste for sugar. If you don't eat a lot of sugar, a couple things you can do. One is chewing. Most people can lose a lot of weight by chewing their food a lot and slowly. I know it sounds ridiculous, but seriously, it's hard to do. It's like one of the hardest things you can do, because especially in America, I don't know, like you sit around people and they're just like shoveling food in their mouth, and they've got like a full bite in their mouth and they're like chewing and they shove another one in, and it's horrifying. But when people are eating around you at that pace, it's really hard to not be like, oh my God, it's a race, you know? But if you can like chill out and like slow down, most people lose weight doing that. Something else, cut out, don't eat a lot of bread. Like, I actually wouldn't eat bread at all if you're seriously trying to lose weight. It's not your friend. I'm not a low carb per se person, but that white flour is gonna not be the best option. I would stick with oats and brown rice and barley and stuff like that if you want. You know, and I don't recommend cutting out carbohydrates completely, because I get too hungry. And I know low carb people say they can survive fine on like a lot of meat and protein and no carbs. I cannot. I get starving and I eat too much. And I was on these low carb diets for years, and it wasn't until I started eating carbs again that I lost that last 10 pounds. So Yeah, bread and sugar are the main ones for most people. That's why low carb diets usually really work. But I found that when you're already like, so, I was never like, and I never had to lose a lot of weight. It was always just like that 10, 15 pounds. And I do better, like for that kind of weight loss, that precision sort of weight loss, I do better with slightly less meat and a little bit more like fiber, basically. And I think what it comes down to, that just cuts calories without you being full. Because meat has, I mean, it's delicious, and I don't think it's bad for you, but it has a lot of calories. I mean, like, it's a lot. So, let's see. So somebody asked a really long, complicated question in the chat room. Could you please use the little ask a question button and because I can't follow the chat room. Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to go back and answer some of these questions. The question about the cookbook or the cooking, please ask it in the ask a question. I'll get to it. That's a great question. Okay. This is an interesting one. Let's take this. Regarding what feels natural, doesn't vegetarianism feel more natural to you? I'd say absolutely not. I don't think we were evolved to be vegetarian, and the way, and especially when you talk about feeling natural, because I feel like there's a reason we like meat so much. It's really nutritious in a lot of ways. I mean, obviously there's problems with eating a lot of meat, and obviously processed meats and things like that are not good, but I feel much more like a natural human being when I'm eating a little bit of meat. So we can talk more about this. I think it's a really interesting question. I don't know where that idea came from, that somehow vegetarianism or veganism is more natural. Evolutionary science doesn't support that. And what my own taste buds tell me, and once you cut out processed foods, you become much more in tune with what your body really wants. And yeah, I've never felt a desire to eat zero meat. Less, fine. That's fine. And whatever. And you don't need very much meat at all. You don't need any meat at all. But like, if you are eating meat and you want to use that as a good nutrition source for vitamin B12 and iron and all those things, you don't need a lot. But so yeah, it doesn't feel natural to me. So I love this question. Virginia, I love you. What's the deal with the detox diets? Is that just hippie stuff, or is there anything to them? Hippie stuff, I think, is a good way to put it. I mean, if you're filling your body with toxins all the time, like if you're eating a lot of processed foods, you're eating sugar, you're eating white flour, you're, eating like artificial flavors and chemicals and preservatives, I'm not surprised that people go on these detox diets and they're like, I feel great. It's like, of course you do. You've been like poisoning yourself for the last 10 years. But, other than that, I mean, there's no like science behind it or anything like that. They're totally made up by maybe hippies, maybe not, maybe just dieters. I don't know. Oh, good question. Butter. Butter. We're so paleo. I'm not paleo. I think they're a little on the wacky side. They don't eat beans. WTF. I noticed you mentioned you learned some of the thinnest people eat whole grains. Which grains do I prefer? I like to mix it up. My favorite for like the last 6 months or a year is called farro, Farro. It's an Italian grain, and it's really, really tasty. I also eat like a good amount of oats. I usually eat oats for breakfast. There's a lot of controversial data about wheat, so I feel reserved about saying whether it's good or bad. Brown rice is fun. It's useful and easy. So when I say thinnest people too, you can be thin and not eat grains at all. You can be thin and eat only grains and vegetables and, like a vegan or something. But I think both of those extremes are very unnatural. They're doable. You can totally do them. You can totally make them work for you. You can totally be healthy that way. But I applaud anyone who wants to do that, who wants to be paleo or who wants to be vegan. That's awesome. Go for it. As long as you've got all your nutrition bases checked, then you're fine. I just think my goal is to help the most people find the most flexible diet that works for them. And so, when you start saying you have to be vegan or you have to be paleo and never ever touch these things, I think you're going to lose a lot of your audience. And I found that you can be perfectly healthy, perfectly happy eating just natural foods in reasonable amounts. I'm just not an extreme person, and I've never seen any data that says that being an extreme is better. People are always, I was having a conversation not too long ago with somebody saying, vegan's better, they're healthier than regular Americans for all these reasons. It's like, well, of course they're healthier than regular Americans, but are they healthier than me? And that's what I'm not convinced of. I'm not convinced of that. So that's my take on all this good stuff. This is an interesting question. So I posted something on Twitter earlier about a new study that said that LDL cholesterol was associated with increasing muscle mass. And somebody tweeted back to me that had something to do with testosterone, and that is probably true. I didn't actually read the study yet, so I don't want to go too far into it. It's just interesting. I think the science of blood lipids is very interesting right now, and there's a lot of debate raging about it, and it'll be interesting where we end up in the next 10, 20 years, because I don't think it's where we are now in terms of the advice. So we'll see how that pans out. But are standard lipid cholesterol tests flawed? I mean, I don't think they're flawed. I don't know, but I don't know what that means. I mean, if anything's flawed, it's how you interpret it, right? So, I mean, I think if you're worried about heart disease, I'd pay a lot of attention to your triglycerides. I would pay a good amount of attention to your HDL cholesterol. You want that high, and I would pay a little bit of attention to your LDL cholesterol. You don't want that out of control high. So that's my advice. Somebody said margarine isn't a real food. Okay, is margarine that bad? Yeah, well, because it costs 99 cents a tub. There's a reason for that. It's processed fats, and any processed, everything that's ever been processed has ended up being like really, really bad for us. And if you guys watch my old video on YouTube on saturated fat, I don't think you'd have to eat a lot of butter, I think, for it to be problematic. And I don't know how much you're eating, but eating a lot of margarine is bad as well. And neither of them are like free foods, in my opinion. Like, I don't think there's any, well, maybe kale or something, but there are, generally don't think about things as being like, this is good and this is bad, but like, this is good to have some of, and this is good to maybe watch and have less of, or this is good to, eat more of, or whatever. But, I avoid those black and white scenarios, and I don't trust any processed food. Even the ones that they say are like trans fat free, if you look at the ingredients, they tend to have hydrogenated oils in them, and they just manipulate the serving sizes so they can say 0 trans fat. There's some data that plant sterols and stanols or whatever are like good for your cholesterol that are in some margarines, but I'm not super convinced that like that means it's the best option. I mean, people can argue with me about this, but I think you should be cooking mostly with olive oil anyway. And I just feel like one food in your diet is a small impact. So, I mean, unless you're eating like ridiculous quantities of it. So, okay, here's a good question. So, I am out of the element in the kitchen. Could you please recommend books, sources for basic cooking? Yeah, I was like this too. So when in college, I used to swear to God burn water. I'd be like, oh, I'm gonna make myself some pasta, and I'd like put some water boiling, and I'd forget about it, and it would like burn. So I was a terrible cook. I didn't know how to use anything but a can opener, a microwave, and like maybe heating up water. But like I said, I failed at that sometimes. So the key in the kitchen is starting out with good ingredients because they're really hard to mess up. Second thing you have to do is practice, and I recommend as a good place to start, Alice Waters has this book, I believe it's called The Art of Simple Cooking or something to that effect, but any of her cookbooks are awesome because she emphasizes starting with really just high quality seasonal ingredients, which are going to taste good, so they're hard to mess up. And she recommends very simple preparations. I mean, don't get her like Chez Panisse cookbook. Get her like her simple cookbooks. And they'll be very simple preparations. And one of them, I forget the name of the book, one of her books is designed to teach you to cook, not to follow a recipe. Like it's, it sort of gives you ideas about what to do with certain foods when you have them in your disposal, and and sort of learn how to improvise in the kitchen. And it sort of takes you through those steps, starting with some really basic recipes, and then it gives you riffs on them. So I think like stuff like that is a great resource. So that would be my recommendation for starters. I think you'll love it. So enjoy. This is an interesting question. I'm going to flip over to the chat room so you can come back and forth with me on that. Oh yeah, how to cook everything by Mark Bittman's another great resource for cooking cookbooks. But regarding a website for ideal diet and activity for your age. So I think that any website that pretends to have this information for you is going to be sort of lying. And the reason is because everyone's different. And, we don't have the science yet to... I mean, even though you can get like full genetic panels of all your problems right now, I don't think we have the science yet to be like, you're 52, you should be taking these vitamins and eating these foods and walking this much a day and lifting these weights. Like, it just doesn't work that way. And so you really have to come up with it for yourself through trial and error. And, what I recommend doing generally for like figuring out what's best for you is sort of start by figuring out what you can add to your diet that's healthy. So, like I said, I always start with kale because it's like so easy to cook and it's really tasty. Generally, it's like pretty easy to make good. So it's like you start adding that, you start eating more salads. You're like, try to cut out a little processed food, see what bothers you, figure out like, do I need this in my diet? Do I really need to eat this, scone every morning or whatever habit you have, and be like, actually, no, I can live without that. Or maybe I can definitely live without it 6 days a week. Maybe I'll have it just one day a week, something like that, and see what happens. See how you feel. See how if you lose weight. See if you gain weight, and start just being sort of your own personal scientist and calibrating for yourself. But just start with the principles is that the more natural foods that you eat, the better, and the more variety of natural foods you eat, the better. The less processed food you eat, the better. And the more exercise you get, the better. And, you want to mix everything up. So you want some strength training in there. You want a little bit of cardio in there. And, and your own fitness levels. Like your age is, there are 80-year-olds that run marathons. Your age isn't as important as your own personal fitness level and comfort level with doing certain activities and eating certain foods. So, I also recommend, trying to explore as much as possible. So if you, like, I talk to a lot of people that are like, you convinced me I should eat fish, but I don't really like it. How do I start? I have a article on Summer Tomato. If you go there and search "Learning to Love Foods You Don't Like," I think is what it's called, and I kind of take you through the psychology of how you can get over aversions to vegetables and how you can learn to like things that you might not like right now, but you're curious about for health reasons or whatever. So I would recommend tailoring to yourself because anything otherwise is going to be, I think, misleading. So great question. So there's a ton of questions in here. Oh, it looks like someone's calling in too. Let me go see who's over here. Oh, a soldier. I'm gonna take a call real quick.
Hey.
Hey there, welcome.
Welcome. It's good to be here. I had a question about because I'm losing some weight myself. I know I don't look like I need to, but I'm actually overweight for what I want to be. And but I had a question because a lot of people said that it's actually not good to eat less than 1,000 calories as far as trying to lose weight. That you actually probably need to eat or consume more than 1,000 calories a day. I was wondering what your opinion was that.
So the question is it bad to eat less than 1,000 calories a day?
Yeah, as far as losing weight, yeah.
I'd say so, especially for someone your size. I mean, that's really low. I eat like 2,500 probably. And
Oh, okay.
it's going to be really hard to get enough nutrition that way unless you're eating very, very regimented diet. So there's this group of people, though. There's this group of people that swear that, or they're doing experiments on themselves, I should say, that calorie restriction like is going to extend their lives forever. And what that comes from is data that almost every animal that we've ever studied, from yeast to worms to flies to mice to monkeys, and obviously these are very long experiments to do in humans, but their life extends if they cut down their calories by like 20-30%. There's still no data in humans. Most people do better by eating less, but 1,000 is really low, and I don't necessarily see the benefit of that. Especially when like it's so easy to cut out sugar. I mean, relatively, compared to like cutting out food.
Yeah, that was the hard part for me because I'm cutting down a lot of the fast food and stuff, and just eating a lot of fruits or a salad or anything, and I probably find myself getting right around that 1,000 level. I mean, I don't feel bad, but I just heard that you probably, I think your body it's bad to eat less amount of food because then your body starts to store fats or stuff.
Like it changes your metabolism. I don't know if that's true. And if you
Yeah.
feel okay, I wouldn't necessarily worry about it. Your body will tell you. Actually, my guess is that if you think you're eating 1,000 calories a day and you don't feel bad, you're probably eating more than that and not knowing it. So
Yeah, I probably don't know how to count my calories yet.
well, I actually read an article the other day that calorie counts and like all the nutrition information on food can be off by like a lot, and they don't really test it all the time. So, obviously the companies are going to make it look as good as they can. So you can generally assume things have way more calories than they say they do.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks a lot. That helped.
Yeah, thanks. No problem. See you later.
Oh,
Oh, shit. Sorry, I cut you off. So Soldier, if you have another question, I can take your call again or take it in the question room. But somebody just said that your body switches to emergency mode to save all the calories. That's not true. If anything, your body goes into this calorie restricted mode where it starts reducing metabolic, or it starts cutting down reproductive system function, and actually increases like antioxidant production to preserve you so that you can, it preserves your energy, and it actually, but these are the things that are supposedly extending life in the creatures that cut their calories back. So it actually induces your body to preserve itself better. So I don't think that like your body like stores up fat or whatever, because I've never seen any data for that. I think that's a made up wives' tale. So, yeah. Water and sleep, I agree. Water is really important. So sleep. Okay. Butter or olive oil? I like them both. I use olive oil way more. It's really good for you. It's really tasty. Sometimes I use butter. I like butter I like to cook my eggs in butter with I like to fry up those onions in butter. But I mean, I don't use that much. I like both on bread. Well, luckily, we get to eat different things throughout the day. This is an interesting question. So are there any healthy processed foods, if it's not too high in sodium or sugar and high in fiber? It's hard to think of any, to be honest. I mean, minimally processed can be okay. Like I've read stuff where people have like stone ground rye bread, and that's processing in a way, but they live a long time and they're healthy. And I don't know, I can't think of any. I mean, definitely. See, the problem is when you say processed, they're automatically like putting weird stuff in there. So it's not just about the sugar, or the fiber. You know what I mean? Like, I've actually read stuff that just like arbitrary high fiber foods where it's just like added or like isn't good for you. And you know, if there's no low sugar and it's like a bar or something like one of those like energy bars, then you know they probably have sugar alcohols or other fake sugars in there, and those aren't good for you either. So I will ponder on this, and if I think of anything else, any healthy processed foods, I will write about it on the blog or something like that. Interesting one. You stumped me there. Whoa, I love this question. I'm on a crusade on this one. So people tell me not to eat egg yolks. This kills me because they contain a lot of fat. What do I think about that? I think that's a big load of fat. So egg yolks are filled with nutrition. So go on Summer Tomato and use a little search tool and look up cholesterol. So do a couple searches. Search. So I made a video about cholesterol, sort of explaining why the cholesterol in eggs and other foods is sort of a myth, or like that it's bad for you is a myth. Also check. So I wrote a post called "How to Make Eggs Taste as Good as Bacon" just a couple weeks ago. I put it up. I wrote it last year. It was a repost, but that explains a lot about the fat in eggs and why you should eat egg yolks. Eat egg yolks. All right, great question. What's the word? Yeah. So what's the worst misinterpretation of research, effort, study I've seen in the press? Where to start? There are so many bad ones. So one of my favorite pet peeves are the ones that say like organic food isn't any healthier, because they're almost always like horrible studies where they like put 2 plots of land and they're like, there's no pesticide. Like they don't really do the organic thing they're supposed to do. And then they like take the food, like the organic food versus the regular food, and they like freeze dry it. And then they feed it to rats. And then they like take the rats like blood and like do analysis or urine or something. And then they're like, oh, no difference. It's like, are you serious? It's not even fresh food. You didn't even, it was the same soil. The big difference with organic or like those biodynamic farms is that this soil has nutrients. And you can't just like take 2 identical plots of land and then like plant one thing and like not use pesticides and plant another thing and use pesticides and say that of course they're going to be nutritionally the same if you do it that way. That's not surprising. But then it'll be like on the New York Times, like organic isn't healthier, and then but completely ignoring how bad for you health pesticides are too. Anyway, those ones kill me. Let's see what else. I mean the saturated fat kills you thing is pretty. It's poorly explained in the press as well. That frustrates me quite a bit. And another thing that kills me is when people or journalists or whatever, what they'll do is they'll take a study that says like I saw one a couple weeks ago. It was my BS of the week on one of my Friday posts, and it was basically like hot dogs are better for you than rotisserie chicken. And I was like, oh really? And I click over there, and basically what they did was they measured the level of this like one carcinogen, like one. Like when you cook meat, there's like lots of carcinogens in there, but they've decided to measure one, and that like isn't generally the main one associated with hot dogs. Like they chose one that we know is like associated with flame to meat, so a rotisserie chicken, right? And they showed that the chicken had more of this one carcinogen, but that doesn't mean that a hot dog's good for you. Like just you know what I mean? Like it doesn't mean it's healthier for you. You know, and another thing that kills me is when they like say that this no longer causes heart disease, but like it still causes diabetes, but they like don't talk about that in the article. It's like we don't just die of one disease. Like it's like there's all these diseases and you have to consider them all. And when to just brand something healthy or not healthy or I get so mad at the media. You got me fired up. Good one. Amazing. Sorry. All right, little cough. It's annoying. Okay. This is an interesting question that I don't know if I know the answer to. Good foods for joints. Good foods for joints. I don't know. I mean, I've heard some that like glucosamine and stuff could be good, but I don't. The studies have been very ambiguous, and if anything, they haven't really panned out. So, rock climbing, running, biking, and do your joints hurt you? I mean, so it's going to be a lot of connective tissue. I think, I don't know. I'd feel bad giving any information on this when I don't really know what I'm talking about, but that's something I should look up. So thank you for giving me a blog post for future material. I mean, but generally, a healthy diet is going to be good. You want a low inflammation diet because you don't want inflammation is obviously going to be a problem. And the biggest sources of inflammation are sugar and wheat and dairy, probably. So minimize those things. Make sure you have good equipment to, good shoes and stuff for running, and make sure you're running gaits nice and straight. And I will get back to you. You guys are good. You're stumping me today. Amazing. Stretching. Yeah, someone says stretching helps. Calcium. I don't know about calcium. No, I don't. I mean, it definitely doesn't help with osteoporosis or fractures. At least not on its own. Shoot, I keep messing up this viewing page. Let's see. That didn't make any sense to you guys, but I'm recording and I keep changing where the screen is, which is bad. So let's see. Okay, this is an interesting question. So what to eat before a workout? I train very hard and my blood sugar drops. Protein, what though? I have had, I haven't, sorry, I've read a lot of different things about this. And, a lot of studies show a lot of different things, and a lot of it's conflicting. Some protein, some sugar, and some fat. I mean, when I say sugar, I mean glucose or starch. And I mean, the problem is, you don't want to eat too much. Like, you don't want something like sitting in your stomach for your workout, because it can make you nauseous and it can be difficult to digest. I've heard that it's better to eat like way earlier than you would probably normally expect. But I don't know how. I haven't looked through the data enough to be convinced about any one thing. For myself personally, I used to run marathons and I used to like starve in the middle of the race. And what helped the best for me was I would get like a whole grain bread, usually something like that, or oatmeal or something with peanut butter, because the peanut butter just gives you a lot of calories and excuse me, and it slows down digestion, so it helps you use that fuel over a longer period of time. So yeah, that's like a benefit of a real good whole grain, is that they digest slowly but still give you that like oomph that you need for that starch and that glucose that you need to exercise. So yeah, I mean, peanut butter was my favorite personally. So someone asks about nicotine withdrawal. I don't know anything about that. Sorry, I'm going to drop that question because I don't know anything about food and nicotine withdrawal, and I don't even know if there is any data on that. Okay, here's a good question. So speaking of eggs, is there any benefit to eating farm-raised rather than store-bought eggs? I mean, there's a few benefits. One is that the fresher your eggs are, the better they're going to taste. And the better they're going to work in recipes. They'll be fluffier, they'll just have better performance in the kitchen, if you will. That's probably the biggest one. And most grocery store eggs are pretty old. Even the ones that say like cage-free or whatever, they're not going to be very fresh. So, and then what mainly influences, sorry, the nutrition of eggs is going to be what the hens eat. So, that's why you can find high omega-3 eggs, because they'll just feed the chickens flax or whatever. The most nutritious eggs, they're going to have real dark orange or dark yellow yolks. They're likely going to be not just cage-free, because if you go on like Google some like cage-free, like factory farm eggs, like those chickens aren't particularly happy. But you want pastured. That's the best, like pastured eggs, where they're out in the grass picking up bugs. They tend to be expensive. But those are gonna, they're gonna have the most like diverse nutrients. If those, it's pretty easy to manipulate the nutrition content of food or of eggs with the hen feed, and I think a lot of companies are doing that now. So, sort of it depends on which brands you buy. So I always get the farm fresh eggs. I think they taste better. I like to support the farmers. I like the way the fresh eggs stand up. I mean, you can eat them they're so good, just barely cooked, even though they're just so tasty. And that goes away when they're not as fresh. And like when I say fresh, I mean like that morning they were laid, or like that night before, or something like that. So that is awesome. Barefoot shoes, valuable or overrated? That's a great question. I've never tried. I've heard good things. They're ugly as hell. So it depends on how dorky you want to be, I guess. I know some people swear by them. I think I'm too much of a fashion snob. Kevin had Vibrams. Yeah, I don't let him wear them. They're so ugly. Wait, what? You love when people distinguish between fresh and not fresh eggs. An egg is the result of a hen menstruation? That makes no sense to me. They're fresh based on how long they've been outside of the hen. Anyway. Oh, that is lucky. So Matt said that before the show, he went out to the hen house and got some warm eggs. Wow. We don't get that here in the city. Well, some of my friends do, but my friends are foodies. Oh, here's a good question. So I recommend canned tomatoes when fresh or unavailable. I do. Should I worry about BPA leaching? Yeah. So I wrote an article about this once, whether or not canned tomatoes are dangerous. So a couple companies have switched to BPA free. I forget which ones exactly, but you can Google which. Or they're going to be organic. They're probably going to be a little bit more expensive. Another option is you can get the kind of tomatoes that are canned in glass jars. Also a little bit more expensive. If you don't have any in your hometown, I know on the Foodsie website, it's like an online artisan food shopping place online, Foodsie, that's FOODZIE.com. They have, I think Happy Girl makes some jarred tomatoes that are really, really amazingly tasty. So, yeah, I mean, I'd worry about BPA, especially if you're eating them a lot. If you're not eating them a lot, and you're not feeding a baby, it's hard to say that that's a big deal. But, if you can, you might as well avoid the BPA because you don't know where else it is. So, okie dokie, let's see what's going on with the chat room. No problem, Jenny. Are frozen veggies more fresh than store-bought ones? No, but frozen ones. Oh, yeah, frozen ones are. I thought you said canned. Yeah, frozen ones can be, yeah. I mean, if you're talking about the grocery store. I read a horrifying thing the other day that, like, how old produce at the grocery store can be because they have, like, all these ways of, like, preserving it without ethylene and carbon dioxide and stuff. It's crazy. Okie dokie. You are a fan of samovar, right? How can I get Jesse Jacobs to bring a lounge to the East Coast? I don't know. Drop him an email. He's awesome. He's it's really fun to watch the tea world expand, and yeah, I mean, it would be great for him to have a presence all over the place. But it's hard. It's a hard business. It's hard to scale a business when you're like really trying to do things right. So I don't know what his plans are, but I'm sure he'll do awesome things. So alternatively, you can come and visit us. So. Oh. What do I think about Jamie Oliver's show? I've never seen it. Sorry. I met Jamie a couple weeks ago. Awesome guy. Really, really passionate about what he's doing. I mean, I don't watch the show because I don't watch TV at all, but it sounds great to me. I mean, it's if nothing else, it's just bringing people the awareness that kids can't tell the difference between a potato and a cucumber. That's horrifying. I don't eat anything that I don't know what it is, let alone like at that basic level. So I mean, I think that's great. And but I've never actually watched the show, so I can't say if it's entertaining or whatever. I mean, I've seen like a couple clips online. But what was it like to meet Jamie? It was weird. I wasn't expecting that, but it was awesome. Like I said, he's a really cool guy. I'm in San Francisco. Oh, somebody asked where somebody else was located. Never mind. Okay, yeah, I might shoot over to Hulu and watch that at some point. Here's an interesting question. So James Brooks, which I'm just going to assume that you're the creator of The Simpsons, right? Wants to know my thoughts on the state of meat production in the USA, US of A, especially beef being fed corn. Great question. A lot of you will probably already know my answer to this. I'm a huge detractor of the industrial meat world. I think it's awful what they're doing, A, to the cows, B, to the environment, C, to people. I mean, their facilities are so disgusting that, the USDA basically recommends we all overcook our meat so that we don't get like E. coli and salmonella and die, because they just can't. It's so hard for them to keep like good safety. They like spray, they irradiate meat. They like spray bleach on it. It's so disgusting, and they're less nutritious. The cows are less nutritious because they're eating food they were never meant to eat. Cows were meant to be raised on grass, and they have been force fed or like bred to be able to digest and eat corn and soy so that they get fatter faster. They give them growth hormones. Like, it's horrible. I hate it. And I would love to see it. I mean, to me, that's the main reason people should eat less meat, is so that these giant farms have less of a sales point. I never eat industrial meat. I think it's dangerous to eat. I wouldn't, I don't touch it. So, yeah, and I love grass-fed beef. I think it's fantastic. And if any of you are like, if I'm saying things that like you guys are like, what are you talking about? Go read The Omnivore's Dilemma by Michael Pollan. It's seriously one of the best books you'll ever read. It's fantastic. It's really entertaining. And he explains all this. Where do I get my meat? At the farmer's market usually. Or we have really good grocery stores here in San Francisco. I'm really lucky, and I feel bad that not every place has such good meat options. But I mean, there's a butcher right down the street from my house that just has the best quality, amazing meat. And it's expensive, but it should be. Like, meat's supposed to be expensive, and you'll naturally eat less when you're paying like $15 a pound or something for So there are plenty of other places to get calories. Nobody's gonna die of malnutrition if we don't have like industrial beef. So I all around against it, and I personally just don't eat it. I was actually at a barbecue, last weekend, and they were like grilling up like this like nasty like frozen burgers with like American cheese, and like I was just like, I'm starving, but I'm not going to eat this. And I took a picture of the ingredients of what's that? Of the cheese, and I put it on Instagram and on Twitter because it was so disgusting. It was like the first ingredient of cheese. Like, first ingredient of cheese, what should it be? Any takers? Chat room, what should the first ingredient of cheese be? Someone, come on. Dairy, milk, right, yay! Everyone here knows that milk and cream or whatever are, milk is the main ingredient of cheese. Here are the ingredients. It was like, number one was water. Number two is partially hydrogenated soybean oil, which is another way to say trans fat. That was the second ingredient. Third ingredient was cornstarch. And then it was like this long line of ingredients that like were like science, like weird chemicals. And then at the very bottom it said, contains milk. And you're like, it's like milk was like a trace element in this food. I mean, it was horrifying. So yeah, I don't eat stuff like that. Yeah, movie theater cheese. Like from the floor of the movie theater, that's how they made cheese. Yeah, that's what. Yeah, exactly. It's not cheese at all. And actually, I don't even think they on the package it says cheese. It's like cheese product or food product or something like that. But that's not what people think when they go to the store. Nobody reads it and like, oh, this isn't really cheese. They're like, oh yeah, cheese, sliced cheese. Of course, it's cheese. They don't even think that it's not cheese. So that it's totally misleading, and yeah, never eat it. horrifying. Great question. Thank you for going. I love when you guys get me going. Like ask me questions that make me like really animated because I I forget, like I'm so engrossed in this world. I forget that like some people don't know these things, that that cows were actually meant to eat grass and not corn. I didn't know that. I always thought corn-fed beef was great. Like it sounds nice and wholesome, right, from the Midwest, but it turns out that's pretty evil. Anywho, by the way, you guys, if you're asking more than one question at a time, your old ones will fall off. They'll disappear from my stream. So I'm seeing that some questions are disappearing. It's because the same person's asking more questions. So if I don't, wait till I answer one of your questions and then ask another one. Okay. So basic, regular U.S. meat from a huge slaughtery or vegetarianism. So are those your only choices? I mean, you might, so I don't think those are the choices. I think you should go meet your farmers. I think you should spend a little bit of more money and buy quality meat. I have no trouble with vegetarianism either. If you want to, if you live somewhere or you can't afford to get good quality meat, sure. I mean, vegetarian might be a good option for you. But, I would encourage that if you want to eat meat, but you don't want all that industrial meat, is to go find a farmer. Let's a grassroots movement that says there's a demand for good meat, good food again. We don't want to eat your crappy food anymore. We want good food. Then that infrastructure will start to build organically on its own, and one day it'll be available to everyone. So I think that's the best thing to do, and and it really will help you appreciate the true value of food, because, like I said, so the reason the industrial meat is so cheap is because corn and soy, which are what they're feeding them to fatten them up, they're really cheap for the farmers because the government subsidizes them. So you're paying your tax dollars are making that meat cheap. And, when you actually go pay an honest farmer for, an honest piece of meat that was, raised on his grass, and he, took care to slaughter it humanely and whatever, it's more expensive, it tastes better, but that's what food costs. There's no, I don't know, it's not really fair that we dodge that, and, and eat less, then you eat less. Everyone's a winner. So that's my take on this. This is interesting. So do you think there's a difference between hay-fed and grass-fed? Both are considered grass-fed. It's a good question. And it really comes down to the season, right? Like in the spring and in the early summer, and maybe even all through the summer, it's going to be grass, and later in the year it's going to be hay because there's no grass. So, I think it's a natural course of life that cows sort of do both. That's why the best cheese is always in the springtime, is because that's when the cows get their fresh, delicious grass again, and the cheese you can taste it. So, appreciate your spring lambs and your spring cheeses, and, roll with the seasons. Nature won't steer you wrong. Dang, you guys are asking me so many questions. We took up a whole hour already. I'll keep answering a little bit, and then I gotta finish up my blog post for tomorrow and head out. Oh, shoot, I keep moving the screen. Sorry. As a scientist, I'm going to say, yeah, it makes a sound. Oh my God. Dr. Oz is turning my mother into a mindless automaton regarding food choices. Please help. I can help. I can help. Go onto Google and type in Dr. Oz fraud. That should help. He's a quack. First of all, he sold a bunch of people's information when he started that Real Age website, to pharmaceutical companies and stuff. Basically, he changes his plan every week depending on who's paying him to say stuff. And then he did this one a couple months ago where it's psychic, crazy things, and people called him out on it. And so there's a lot of good articles on why that he's a total douchebag, and he's basically in the business of selling supplements, selling books, selling TV spots, and getting paid to be an expert on things. I think he's a total quack. So, yeah, just send her some of those articles about what a fraud he is. That's my advice. This is a good question. So have I read about the 100-mile diet, thoughts about eating super local? I have read a little bit about it. I read that book, Animal Vegetable Miracle. I think it's a nice experiment. It's a nice idea. But I think it's impractical for most people. I think it's a little bit elitist. I mean, not everybody is going to be able to like forage their own mushrooms and like whatever. I recommend people paying the real price for meat and eating less. And some people call that elitist. I don't think so. I think it's honest. I think these like 100-mile fad diets and stuff are a little this is where foodieism goes like to a place where I'm not really willing to go. But if you live on a place where there's a huge farm and you can eat everything off your farm, that's fine. But I don't like having like a lot of dogmatic rules. I mean, I eat most of the stuff that I eat from fairly local, but I'm not gonna like not eat an orange from Southern California. I grew up down there. They taste way better when they're grown down there, and it's like 500 miles, like whatever. I'm not gonna be picky about stuff like that. So that's my take on it. And also, I mean, tell that to people who live in like Minnesota and they're like on ice ground for like 3 or 4 months out of the year. They're not growing any of their own food, and it's really, I think, obnoxious to tell people that they'll be a better person or a healthier person if they only eat like snow, whatever, like pine trees. So I mean, if they have to get their stuff shipped in from California because we have beautiful produce in the winter, that's fine. I mean, it's better. I mean, it's better than eating stuff shipped from like Chile, because if something's being shipped from the southern hemisphere, it's coming from a giant industrial farm. Whereas like, you might have some big farms in California growing kale that we're sending, over to Minnesota, but that we have extra kale. We have plenty of vegetables here in the winter, and not everybody does. But, those operations down in South America and stuff, I mean, it's a whole different ball game. You're dealing with planes and ships, and, it's really, the eco footprint is much worse than just shipping something from California. And it's like you don't really need strawberries all year round. That's a spoiled luxury. Talk about elitist. In the winter eat citrus. Summer eat strawberries. It's okay. So, yeah, it's interesting. It's an interesting experiment. It's kind of cool that some people have the luxury of doing stuff like that, but not my thing really. Okay, here's an interesting question. A friend religiously buys low-fat cow's milk. Is there really much of a difference? Myself, I do soy. So I did a show. If you go onto my YouTube channel, so it's just Darya Pino, my name, all one word, youtube.com/Darya Pino. I did a show a few weeks ago on dairy and about what it means, why they even have low-fat and high-fat milk, and what it means to be homogenized. And personally, I just read cutting the fat out of dairy is not helpful. But drinking any sort of homogenized pastured milk isn't that great either. I don't know. I haven't seen much good data that low fat is better. But I mean, I don't know if that really matters. I get usually, I like full fat yogurt. I don't drink dairy milk because I am lactose intolerant. But I just make sure to get it from pastured cows, not from like industrial farms that have growth hormone in the cows. That's for me the biggest issue. I don't do soy milk because I can't find any beans that aren't genetically modified or grown from China. So I stopped drinking soy milk. My favorite these days is almond milk and coconut milk, both unsweetened. Always go unsweetened. I got to start wrapping this up soon, guys. Oh wow, we've attracted more people, haven't we? And I've been neglecting the chat room. So good foods for vegetarians to improve skin health. So also on Summer Tomato Live a couple weeks ago, I did one on vegetarian and vegan diets. And so you should. So if you're interested in skin health, you should watch that show and also the dairy show. I don't know if you're a vegetarian that eats dairy, but basically sugar is bad, wheat might be bad, and dairy is bad for acne. if that's what you're concerned about. So go watch those. They're over on my YouTube channel. By the way, I normally do a live show every other week called Summer Tomato Live, where I talk about these topics. And it's actually it's only available to subscribers to my newsletter. It's called Tomato Slice. It's a premium newsletter, so it's like $3.99 a month. But basically, like I let the subscribers vote up topics, and so if you have like a question, like I could do a whole show on that grass-fed beef stuff. So we'll have a topic and we'll just stay on that topic and really explore it really well, and subscribers can call in and interact with me live, and then and then I post it on YouTube a week later. So if they're available free eventually, but if you'd like to participate live, you have to be a subscriber, and that's $3.99 a month, and that's actually what the URL is at the bottom of the screen. Not that anyone can see it. I'm not sure that you can see it or not, but yeah, so that's what I normally do. But then I hold these office hours, and I like to keep these a little bit more open, just to spread the good word about all this stuff. So let me flip through here real fast and see if there's any more questions, because I got to wrap this up. No, don't start smoking. Joe Poe, if you don't like meat, you don't have to eat meat. Just make sure, go watch my vegetarian diet episode, and there's things you can do. You just have to make sure you get enough nutrition that you would normally be getting from the meat. And you'll be eating a lot less calories and stuff. So there's benefits of being vegetarian. Thank you, Brandon. You had a really nice thing to say. I'll just put it up while I'm finding another question. I appreciate that. Okay. I'll take this. I'll take this one real quick. Multivitamins. I take one. Technically, you don't need to take one, but you have to be eating really well to be perfect. And I take one because they haven't been shown to be necessarily bad as long as none of the vitamins are in too high a quantity. So just like a nice balanced multivitamin I take. I also take vitamin D because here in San Francisco we just don't get enough sun. So vitamin D3, and I take 4,000 to 6,000 IU, somewhere in that range. Okay, I did not try the lucid dreaming stuff. I really want to. Okay, and Danny asks awesome question that we're going to close on today. What is the next topic? So we actually I'm really excited about the show. So the next show is on Monday. And again, this is going to be the closed show for Summer Tomato Slice subscribers. And if you're interested in reading more about that, you can go to Summer Tomato and click on the tab that says Live on the corner, and it'll give you information about the show. Actually, it's free for the first month. For the next week, I'm doing a special. So if you are curious and you want to see the next show, you can sign up, and it'll be free for a month. But after that, you can either unsubscribe or you'd have to pay. But so the next show is on Monday night at 6:30 p.m. Pacific, and I have a guest. It's my first guest show, and the guest is Travis Saunders from the blog Obesity Panacea. And Travis is awesome because he's a scientist. He's just like me. He's working on his Ph.D. I think he's got to be done soon. He's probably pretty close to done. We'll ask him on Monday. But he studies exercise physiology and specifically the role of sedentary behavior in health and body weight and stuff like that. And he's really smart, really awesome, and we're going to have a great discussion on the role of exercise in weight loss. So it should be an awesome show, and I hope that you guys can all make it. And let us end on that note. I will hang out a little bit in the chat room once we close up and answer a few more questions there, but I gotta get this going. So thank you guys so much. That was awesome. And again, if you want to sign up, go to tinyletter.com/summertomato. And otherwise, I will see you later. Over and out.